Hi, I'm Jennifer Ferguson with Artistic Painting Studio, and I'm excited to be here again on Home Talk Live today. We are going to be doing a ambitious project. It is a cute little dresser, or well, it will be a cute little dresser when I'm done. Um, and I am going to just show you everything that's going on. So just making sure, are we live? Is everything going okay? Okay, I got my crew here today and they say we're good to go. So again, I have Andy behind the camera, so everybody say hi to Andy, and I am blessed once again to actually have my son Tyler here that's helping, and he will help with some questions as we're going along. So as I get started, you guys, I'm here in Huntington Beach, California, and I'd love to know where everybody is tuning in from as you join us. So like I said, I've got this cute little dresser, and no matter what paint I'm ever going to use, I am a firm believer in primer. So this little thing went out into the alley like every other piece of furniture does around here, and got a nice little sanding job and a good layer of primer. Now the primer I use a lot is XIM, and at the end of this whole segment, we will be doing a post. The post probably won't be up till tomorrow because I'm not done with the piece. But every product that I'm using, everything that's in this whole segment will be listed for you guys. So the whole product list will be available. So I have primed it with the XIM, and I'm using one of my favorite paints, which is the DIY paint by Debbie's Design Diary. And Black Velvet is my choice that I'm using today. Now Black Velvet is kind of like a really dark charcoal gray. It's not a black. And I'm going to be applying this with a real dense sponge roller. And I like using the dense sponge rollers because they leave as little bit of texture as possible behind. So they're nice to work with. And I'm going to be bad, I'm just dipping right into the can here. And I'm just using a foam plate for my application. And hey Tyler, can you hand me that black handled brush right there? Got a little water on it probably. But I like to use an art brush when I'm actually cutting in. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut in this edge across the top, because the sponge roller is really not going to get there. And that way I can get it started. And then from there, I can go ahead and just use the foam roller. And any place the roller's not going to get is where I can get back the other way. Now, Andy and I need to switch sides because, as you can see, I'm right-handed, and there's no way I can continue to roll in that direction, so I'm going to move over here. But when you've got a large area and surface to do, this is such a small piece, I wouldn't bother getting out a sprayer, but it's nice to have a foam roller, some kind of a roller where you can get in here and actually get this painted really quickly. So Tyler, as I'm doing this, what is our giveaway question today?
What piece in your home would you be inspired to give a makeover to?
Ah, yes. What piece do you guys have laying around that needs a great makeover? And I'm telling you, we're doing all kinds of things. So what I'm doing down here is my foam roller just didn't reach these inside areas, and if somebody was really short or low and move this dresser around, I'm one that has to get in there and kind of paint every nook and little cranny, and I can see that edge from down here, so I'm just kind of painting the bottom side of it. So I'm sure everybody has some kind of piece hanging around that always needs a makeover. Oops, okay, I got a little hair in there. Let's get rid of that. That was a good catch. Okay, so this here would completely let it dry, and then once this layer's dry, I'd put another full layer on. So we are going to move on to another section of this dresser. Like I said, I have got all kinds of things going on here. And now we're going to move to the actual top of it, and we are going to go ahead and I'm going to be doing my one of my foamy rollers here, which this is the diamonds pattern, and I'm going to go ahead and do a texture on here and roll the diamond pattern through. One of the reasons that I actually chose to do that is there was a lot of damage to the top, And I figured doing a texture on the top would actually just kind of disguise all that anyway. So it was a great way to just take care of all the imperfections and do something that would be really cool. So we are going to be starting with my texture medium, and this is my own brand called Artsyville. And the texture medium was actually designed to be a real user-friendly medium that you could apply, and it's easy to trowel on to a surface. Now, if you don't happen to have an actual trowel, and I'm using my little mini Japanese trowel, you can use kind of any type of trowel, or you could use a spatula. I know that we've used room keys in the past, and oh, I thought I had some laying around here, I'm not sure. But the room key would be awfully small to try to do such a larger surface area. So the trowel is going to probably be the fastest and the easiest, or using some kind of a spatula or putty knife. So Tyler, as I'm doing this, are there any questions so far?
I'm frozen right now.
Oh, well, we're frozen here. Okay, so.
Well, you're not frozen. You're frozen.
Okay, my computer's frozen. That's not good. Okay, so I guess we don't have any questions at this moment. Andy, can you see the questions going through? Or are we?
There's a couple of questions. Let's see.
Well, I guess where's everybody from? How's that? Tell me where everybody is tuning in from. So there's nothing going on the screen?
Yeah, there is.
Is everybody out there? Is anybody watching?
Iris says hi.
Hello.
Josephine.
Okay, so as I'm applying this,
How thick are you putting on?
that's what I was just going to indicate. Okay. Somewhere between a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch is really all you need. You do not need anything on here, no matter what texture you're working with, to be very thick. It just needs to be thick enough to actually get the roller to imprint into it. And you would be amazed at exactly how thin that can be. So I'm just reloading my trowel every time I run out of product here and covering this surface. And like I said, I mean, I'm just trying to keep it pretty thin for several reasons. First of all, the thicker the material is that you're rolling through, the thicker the impression is going to be, which if you want it a real deep imprint, there's nothing wrong with it, but it will also peak the material higher, which means there's more sanding in the end. So I want this actually to be pretty smooth when I'm done, because it is a little dresser where somebody is going to definitely be putting things on top of it. So a smooth surface is going to be a better surface for the use of this particular piece. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just trying to thin it down. And you're definitely going to have areas that are going to be thicker and some that are going to be thinner. So you don't have to worry about that. The other thing is this product has a really nice open time. So I can get it on here and work with it and not panic about, you know, this being on here too long and drying. So most of the patterns I never worry about actually lining them up when I do the next roll. But the diamonds is one of those patterns that you do want to actually match up the pattern. So it's important that we actually have the pattern matching up. So I want Andy to kind of come in here close, and hopefully you can see my little Sharpie marker that I put on here. So I've got a Sharpie marker on the end and the top, and that's my alignment of where I'm going to make sure I know where that mark is every time I start the roll, so that way I can get the diamonds to actually match up. So to start with here, I'm going to try to get that line to where it's straight up, and I'm just going to roll right through. And as I'm rolling, I'm keeping my eye on the edge here, trying to just go as straight as I can. So I don't like look at the whole roller, I kind of look at the edge. So now I'm going to bring that Sharpie marker that I put on there back up on top, and try to get my diamonds to where my spacing is close here. And again, I am going to look at that edge, that's where they're supposed to be connecting. Okay, and I missed, okay? So to me, I'm not lined up as well as I want it to be. So guess what? Jennifer's somewhat a perfectionist, so she's gonna go through that and we're gonna do it again. But exactly, that's how easy it is. I mean, if you're not happy with the way it's come out, just do it again. Okay, this time I'm actually try with the Sharpie marker straight down and see if I can get a better lineup that way. Okay, and again, like I said, I'm watching this edge right here and trying to stay straight. Okay, and then get that marker straight down. And let's see if I can nail it this time. Oh, we look good this time. Okay, there we go. They're pretty close on that one. And the last one here. So I hope everybody understands kind of what I'm doing and the extra steps that I'm going through to try to get it lined up. And no, they don't have to be perfect. So it kind of just depends on you and the way you want to see things. But even though I'm a little off on that one, I'm pretty happy with this. And if Andy can kind of get in here pretty close, there is a little peeking of the material, but not much. And that's really a nice level of thickness there because there's not going to be a lot of sanding in the end. So my texture medium normally takes a couple hours to dry. So this will have to thoroughly dry before we can go to the next step, which would be our sanding. So I prepped out a couple extra boards and I just need to move this dresser. Tyler, can you help me move this dresser? And let's just go that way with it. He's got it, perfect. And just one other little thing, because I always try to keep the paint off the floor, I just use little wooden blocks to raise the dresser up on its feet, so that way you've got a nice surface to work on, and normally that way you can paint all the way to the floor and not have to worry about it. Okay, so again, are there any questions, Tyler, as we're going here?
Just some people saying what they would do. Someone says the refrigerator needs an update.
Oh, that's
some
awesome.
dressers. Someone wanted to turn something into a wine cabinet or a wine bar.
Oh, we got some great ideas out there. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna have Andy come over here with me. So not only is this one of those projects that has a little ambition to it, we're just kind of going all over the studio with it too, because there's a lot going on. So here's the diamonds that has already been done. And I've already done a little bit of sanding because I don't like to do a ton of sanding in the studio. But I always recommend you want to put on your mask. And I like using sanding blocks because it keeps the surface level without going down into the lower areas. So that way when you're sanding, you're just going to sand off the highs. So that's all you need to do. And then just make sure that you've cleaned off your surface and it's ready to go. The top of it I'm doing in Modern Masters metallic. And this is one of those great metallic paints. I think Modern Masters is definitely my favorite. And what I love about them is they even have a little code on the side that tells you if you're getting a color that's opaque or semi-opaque. So it's kind of easy to pick a color, even knowing, you know, it might only take 1 or 2 coats or it might take 3 or 4. And their silver almost covers beautifully in one. I always put the second coat on just because I'm that type of person, but it's a beautiful color and great, great coverage. So again, I love my little sponge rollers here, which it looks like I got them laid all over the place now. And I'm just gonna dip some of that paint out of there, get my sponge loaded.
Does the metallic paint come in copper?
Yes, it does. It comes in a beautiful, beautiful copper. I think if you go to modernmasters.com that you can see probably all of their paint colors online. I sell the Modern Masters. We just don't have everything on the website. So if you're looking for one of the colors, we can definitely get it for you. You might just either have to send me a little note or call me on your order. The other thing I want to tell you about the metallics is a lot of people have some difficulty with them because metallics have a memory. So if I go this direction and then I go back that direction, it remembers the direction it's laying the metal particles in the paint. So you tend to have more lap lines in it. Can you see that, Andy, that you can see it distinctively? So once I've rolled through, I'll normally come back and roll everything down, or at least whatever direction, but roll everything in one direction. That way all the metal particles are laying in the same direction and you'll have less lap lines that will be apparent. We are going to go through the process of even putting a glaze over this, so a lot of the imperfections would actually get hidden. But if you were going for just a solid metallic finish, that's a great way to eliminate as many of the lap lines as you possibly can. So I'm going to go forward. Now this is exactly what the top of the dresser is going to end up looking like. But I wanted you guys to actually see me do it on the piece of the furniture instead of just the sample board. So that's why I'm finishing out the samples instead. When you do a piece like this, that's a little bit on the ambitious level of trying to do so many things live, we don't always have time for all the drying. So I'm just going to clean up if any of this metallic is coming off here before we go to our glaze. So again, I know that Tyler had posted it or said it, but would love to continue to hear what kind of projects you guys are wanting to redo. The rollers are such a fun tool to work with, and there's just so many different things that you can actually do with them. And like even this dresser, I'm combining two different types of rollers. So I'm going to introduce you to another type of roller and how to use those. So this has our metallic paint on here. This section is dry because I did it ahead of time. And I'm going to actually make a glaze. So I'm using, again, Modern Masters, and they have a wall glazing cream, which the wall glazing cream, see if Andy can get a little picture in there, that you can see that that is just a clear medium that kind of has like a little bit of a white haze to it, but it dries perfectly clear. And sorry about the little ding dong, but I think my son went out the front door, so our doorbell went off. And I'm actually tinting it with Proceed has a carbon black colorant. Now Modern Masters also has a colorant, but I like using colorants over paint because it makes transparent color to glaze with instead of color that has any opacity. And it also gives you the maximum amount of open time, and that's what you're using glazes for, so they give you transparent color, give you working time to play with them and create with them. Hey Tyler, can you hand me or find me a chip brush? Probably going to be by the sink. They're the really cheap looking brushes hanging over there. So I've already mixed up my glaze, and I normally do about, when I mix up the recipe, I always say it's like 1 cup of glaze to approximately 3 tablespoons of colorant. Depending on the intensity level that you're looking for in your glaze. Perfect. I'll take one of those. Thank you. Chip brush, okay, cheap little brush. These are great for applying glaze. So depending on how much glaze you need to mix up, you can always reduce the recipe to 1/2 cup and 1.5 tablespoons, or even adjust how much colorant you're putting in there depending on the intensity that you're looking for. You're never going to get an opaque color, but you can get a really, really rich color by adding more colorant, or you can have almost sheer color where there's barely can see it by adding less colorant. So it's nice to do a sample first and kind of get an idea of exactly how much of the colorant that you're looking to put in there. So I am going to apply the glaze over the whole surface. And I'm just kind of stretching it out and pulling it, because what we're going to basically do is come back and take 90% of it off. So I don't like to waste a ton of it. by overglazing the surface, but you need to have enough on there to also remove. So my whole idea with glazing this is to give it a little bit more depth and dimension, and also bring out the diamond pattern itself. And you want to make sure the glaze is everywhere before you get going. So you've got to make sure you kind of scrub it down into all those recessed areas. This is cheesecloth, another one of my favorite things to work with, and this is on a large bolt. When you pull the pieces off, they actually come off in these little sheets. I normally will grab 2 of those or 3 of those, just kind of depending on what I'm doing, and put them together and create a little pad. And this is like one of my favorite things to use to remove the glaze with. So all I'm going to do is just wipe off the excess, okay? And then depending on exactly how much of it I want to wipe off, this is a personal thing. Some people like to leave it where you can see a lot of the glaze and the striate effect, or you can continue to shear it down so that you're just getting a little bit of depth and dimension from the glaze. And it really is a personal option. There's really no wrong direction on how much or little to remove. It's just, I think, a personal opinion, and however you like it. So that's what I'm looking for. So it'll just give a little bit more depth to it. And when it dries, the metallic will come through a lot stronger. Whenever you put glaze over it, kind of tends to kill it at first, but then once the glaze actually dries, the metallic will be coming back. So as we're getting ready to move to another section of this project, are there any questions, Ty?
Someone asked, where do you buy cheesecloth?
I actually sell it here. So that's a specialty product. You're not going to find that everywhere, and it's actually designed for the finishing industry. So it's not like the cheesecloth you cook with. It has a different fabric and fill to it. And the cheesecloth that I use also doesn't really leave any lint behind. So it's really nice that when you are using it, you're not going back and picking out a lot of lint. So now is the time where I'm going to introduce you to the new rollers. And I think I got to clean up my surface just a little bit here. Let's find some room to work. And I'm going to have Andy come back over here because I need you to see what I'm going to do first, okay? So, to start with, I like to use a flat surface to load the paint onto these rollers. So this is a serving tray, and I have lined it with good old press and seal because I hate to clean, so this keeps my surface pretty clean. And this is where I'm going to actually load the paint onto. And Tyler, you had an extra chip brush, right? Did you leave one of those here? Let me have another one of those. So I'm using, again, the Modern Masters. And when I load, ooh, this is a really stiff chip brush. I think that one needs a better cleaning job here. So I'm just brushing the paint onto the surface. What was that?
Closer.
Oh, closer? Yeah, so I'm just brushing it onto the surface so I have that flat surface to work with. And I like to add a little bit of water so that we can reduce the paint enough that it flows into the sponge applicator, okay? So that's what I'm going to start with. The rollers that we're using are my new stamping style rollers. And the first thing that we have to do is actually load the sponge applicator. So that's what we're going to be doing right here. And this is what I do on the tray, is just load it in there by rolling it back and forth. Now, depending on how big your project is, would probably depend on how much of the paint that I'm loading in here. We're just doing the top, or actually doing the drawer fronts. with the roller. So it's not a huge area. And I'm actually just gonna wipe my brush off on here too.
How do you get chip brushes not to shed?
I'm gonna say almost every chip brush you ever buy is going to shed, and probably the thing that I like to do is all the new chip brushes just have to get washed before they get used. And if you wash them first, a lot of the loose ones actually, leave, they just come out. The older your chip brushes are, that's why most of mine are all rusted and kind of vintage looking, is the older they get, the less hair they keep losing. So I'm kind of a lover of old chip brushes. I actually hate having to buy new ones because they shed. There's actually another brush that we're going to start carrying here, which is a really nice style chip brush, and they don't shed nearly as much. Okay, so my sponge is loaded, and now I'm going to put my pattern in. And today we're using the Bird of Paradise, and I just want to show you guys, when you're loading it in, the sponge applicator is in a wider section of the bar, okay? So I've learned that you hold onto the bar as well as hold onto the pin, and when you're doing that, because you're going to have to open the bar up even more so that you can get the design fed in there, okay? Otherwise you tend to lose the sponge back and forth. Now I want to do a little test run and get the design actually loaded, so I'm just going to roll off on the paper. Okay, so also I've just determined that that's the direction towards you, but I need to flip that back towards me. So I've got to turn that pattern around. Let's see, now I'm not sure which way it fell out. Okay, we're gonna test it again, okay? And I got it right back the same way. Okay, so let's get that flipped over. Hopefully this time I got it right. One more time. Okay, now those birds are facing me. Perfect. So the test run is good for a couple things. You're going to make sure that you have the roller in the direction you want so you can see the pattern the way that you're wanting the pattern to come out, as well as you are transferring the paint to the design. And I want the design always loaded before you get started on your actual project, because if it's not loaded, you might miss some of the actual surface before you get going. Okay, so now that I've got this loaded, I'm going to talk to you guys about all the measuring and everything that I actually did and what I've done to these drawer fronts. I wanted the pattern to come straight down the middle to start with, and I have got the drawers all taped together so that I have one surface to work on. If I was going horizontal, I wouldn't care, but because I'm going vertical on these, I wanted the pattern to be continuous and not try to figure out where I was stopping and starting on each drawer. So I've taped them all together. I've got them bunched together. I've got them jimmied up underneath, so I got them as level as I possibly could. This was actually a little bit of a challenge. And then the next thing I did was find the center point of the drawer, and then figured out my guideline for my first run. So I'm going to use this guide as my edge for my first one. And once I have my first pass on here, then I can remove the tape and I can go to the left and I can go to the right. And I should hopefully end up equal on the edges. We'll see. We'll see how well I did my math earlier today, okay? One of my biggest challenges is the direction that this is in and getting a straight run on this. And I'm going to come across, I think this way, being right-handed, I think I'm going to have a better pass at this, okay? So I'm going to start down here at the bottom and come towards you, and I'm following my tape and trying to be straight. And that is pretty damn awesome if I don't say so myself, okay? So that hopefully is going to keep me straight on all the rest of my passes here. And now I'm just kind of eyeballing how close I want the pattern to be. I'm not really trying to line the repeat of the design up, meaning I don't care if the birds are at the same level. And then on these edges, I'm going to ask that wonderful little son of mine to come be my assistant here. When all you have is 1.5 inches to 2 inches of width, the roller can wiggle back and forth. It's kind of hard to stay straight when you're only going to roll 1 inch or so. So what I'm having him do is just hold a piece of plywood up to the edge so that I've got something where I'm not putting all the weight on just one little area here. And that way I can try to be, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so now let's see if I can actually reach, and I think we're just gonna have to climb up here, guys. There's no other way to do it. Let's hope it holds me, okay? And, oh yeah, this is way better.
Could you do this on glass, maybe?
If you've got a paint that will adhere to glass, I have no problem doing it on glass. You could do it on the back side of glass. Hey, Ty, do you think you can help me out with the other side?
Yes, one second. Are you
Okay.
ready for me?
Yes, I am. So the question is, could you do this on glass? Boy, you could do it on reverse glass. So say you had a glass table and you wanted to paint this on the table, you just paint it on the back side of it. And, you know, as long as nobody goes back there and scratches, I think we'd be okay. Okay, we've got little tight quarters here. See if you can get in here for me. And
Perfectly flat. Let's go.
so this is one of those things that doesn't have to be extremely perfect. That was great, thank you. You know, we're doing something that, you know, I've lined up some measurements to give us something as a guide, but we don't have to be absolutely perfect with it. And even my system didn't work as great here, where it didn't keep that one drawer jimmied all the way up, so I kind of lost some of the bird. But like I said, this is one of those projects where I had a lot going on. I wanted to be able to show you guys as much as I possibly could, but this whole thing is going to get finished up either tonight or tomorrow. And I still think I'm even going to glaze over the top of this, maybe in a silver glaze. I haven't kind of decided. I think once I kind of get everything taken apart and start putting the drawers back, we'll figure out which way I'm going to go with it. But I wanted to see if there's any other questions on actually working with the stamping rollers. Is everybody?
Someone asked if they could do it on a wall.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the nice thing about these is because you're loading the sponge applicator, it continually feeds the pattern. So you can do a 10-foot wall easily. I've done some drape panels. You can do all kinds of different things with them. And it's a positive application, so you're just painting on whatever color and onto whatever surface. You do want to keep an eye, because when I did the drapes, I noticed like on my third pass, and those were probably maybe at least 6 to 7 feet tall, that the color started to fade a little bit, so I knew I needed to reload the sponge. So you kind of have a guide of even, you know, when you need to reload, and, you know, you can keep an eye on it. So so are there any other questions? And again, I guess do we get to pick today who the actual winner is going to be on their makeover project? I thought Home Talk wanted me to pick this time, so.
Do you use specific paint with this?
You can use any paint. I'm using the Modern Masters Metallic. I have used the DIY paints. I've used General Finishes. It doesn't matter what paint. I think even one of my customers was trying it with a stain. So as long as you can get whatever product into the applicator, and I do a test run every time and just make sure you're getting the results you're looking for. More questions?
Can you do this on fabric?
Oh, absolutely on fabric. That's what I was talking about, the drape panels that I was doing. And I think even one of my next segments coming up in a week or so is going to actually be on fabric. So we'll have more on fabric painting then.
Everyone's asking where to get the rollers. I posted the link in there, so
Okay, well, Tyler's definitely posting the link, and like I said, there's going to be a home talk post that I'll be finishing up, and I just couldn't finish it because the piece isn't finished to be able to actually do that. But there'll be a full list of all the products that are used, where you can purchase them. It is artisticpaintingstudio.com. There's actually, if you hover over shop, there's a little drop down menu, and you'll find decorative rollers. I think you actually will find 5 different tabs to go to. There's over 45 rollers to choose from now in the collection. So the stamping style, the faux roller that I showed you earlier that you actually imprint with, there's tons of different patterns to play with. So I think we have to pick a winner.
I mean, I'm not gonna be able to find it. It's too far away.
Oh, okay.
There's
Well,
so many comments.
I guess Tyler found one he really liked, so I'm going to let him pick it when we can actually go back and find it. And we'll post who that is. And then I just need to let you guys know that we want to make sure that at the end of this broadcast, please hit the subscribe button. That way you will never miss another Home Talk Live. And please tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, where they're going to be live with Heirloom Paint Traditions and Heirloom Paint Traditions paint, and they're going to have a chance to win $100 worth of paint. So that's going to be an awesome prize tomorrow, you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in and being with me here today, and we'll see you next time.